All right, well, good to see everybody. Yeah, I'm excited to get to share my story and go through what we call the roadmap to success for new agents. One thing I would say is, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. I mean, nobody would really be here for Paul if it weren't for Paul. You know, Paul paved the way, stayed incredibly consistent. And when I think about the roadmap to success for new agents, he modeled it over and over and over and over again. One of the things I learned from Paul is how to work when you didn't need to. You know, when I first met Paul, he was incredibly financially successful doing this. And one of the things that kept me so attracted to this business was the fact that he showed up to work every day, even when he had money in the bank. One of the things I'll tell people is, a lot of people have been in a position where their back's against the wall and they come out swinging and they get ahead and they think that that's the hard part of the business. That's actually the easy part of the business. The hard part of the business is when you have some money in the bank, what's going to motivate you to go continue to do the work? And that's what trips most people up. It's not the person going from 0 to helping 15 families a month or 0 to helping 20 families a month. It's the person that's done that for a few months and then thinks it's okay to just take their feet off the gas or foot off the gas. If you can learn to overcome that challenge early on and not go through that, it'll serve you really well, right? So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to revolve around more of that aspect of the business than anything else. So my story is real simple. When I got introduced to Family First Life, on paper, you would have thought I'd be the best salesperson to ever do this because I did in-home sales for a really long time. And I was so good at it that the last sales job that I had, they fired me. They actually didn't just fire me, they fired me and threw all my stuff out in the street. And I got in a fist fight with 2 people on the way out the door. And I would have won, but the one lady, she was 67. That's actually a true story. I've been telling that for years. Everybody's like, that really true? And then I found a picture of the lady and I sent it to Paul and he's like, yeah, I see why you lost. Like, Bonnie was fierce. But when I was first introduced to this, I had a lot of baggage because the last thing on my mind was like, I didn't think I was a good salesperson. And so I heard about this opportunity. I'm like, yeah, it sounds really good, but I'm not good at selling. I'm the worst at selling, so it's not going to be for me. And what I found out about this was they had leads. And that's what got me excited about the business, is the fact that they had leads of people that had expressed an interest in life insurance. I don't know how to talk to someone who has no interest in life insurance and talk them into being interested in life insurance and get them to get it. I've not developed that skill. The skill that I've developed is talking to people who have an interest in life insurance, showing up, being a consultant, and helping them make a decision on which one to get. That's about as deep as this gets. Where people mess it up is they think you just took a step on the lot. You know, and now I got to rope you in and get you to buy this really expensive car that you don't really want. Like, that's not what this is at all, right? This is not that. I couldn't survive at that either. But with this, I could call people that were interested. I could set appointments to go see them. I could go see them and figure out what they could qualify for. And I could do that consistently. The first step in the roadmap for success as a new agent is don't make permanent decisions off temporary emotions. That's step number 1. What's going to happen? I heard Carla's name, so I'll mention Carla. Last name he said, so I know who Carla is. What's going to happen, Carla, is you'll get a stack of leads. You'll call them. You'll get 3 or 4 in a row that say, hey, I'm not interested. I never filled that out. Don't call me again. And they'll hang up on you. And the permanent decision that people make off that temporary emotion that they feel, is that the leads don't work. That's not true. That was just 3 people that didn't want to talk to you about insurance right then. Has anybody ever put in a request for something and then had somebody follow up with you and they caught you at the wrong time and you were rude to them? Mm-hmm. I do it like all the time. One of my friends, she was telling a story where she said she went on Credit Karma, and they had a suggestion on Credit Karma that she could refinance her car. And it showed how much she could save by refinancing her car. And she was like, that is a great idea. So she filled the thing out and got like 600 phone calls from it, right? Because all these people are calling to help her refinance her car. And she goes, I never even talked to him. I hung up on him. I told him my mom wasn't home. I did all these other things. And I'm like, why? And she's like, I just didn't want to talk to him about it, right? They just caught me at a bad time. And she thought, how stupid am I? She sells insurance too. She's like, that's the same thing that happens with us. So you just got to learn how to not make permanent decisions off temporary emotions. It's not the leads. It's never the leads. The leads work. The ones that tell you no or don't answer, that's just part of your marketing plan for the ones you weren't supposed to see. You weren't supposed to have appointments for those. Be grateful. It's better that they tell you no right there than to set an appointment with you, you drive all the way across town and they don't show up, right? I'd rather just say no right then. Now, are you gonna drive across town or across the county every once in a while and somebody not show up? That's gonna happen too. But you have to learn to make up an activity what you lack in skill and celebrate your wins along the way. That's what'll cause you to be successful long term, is don't look at this as in terms of what's going wrong or what's not working. Look at it in terms of what's going better than it did before. Where am I improving? And have the kind of mindset that over time you can become really successful at it. Like the biggest thing that causes people to fail at this is listening to negative people. Because an ounce of doubt and you're out. And the most fascinating thing about it is, like, you know, I don't want to call any of y'all's names, because let's say Bob was sitting here, okay? And let's say Bob's really negative. The one thing Bob wants to do is pull Carrie down with him. Because if he doesn't do it, it doesn't work for him, but he could cause Carrie to agree that it validates his lack of success. How many people have ever heard the term misery loves company? Yes. That's a true statement. So one of the things that Andrew Taylor taught me early on is don't allow people to complain to you. You know, the best thing you could do is just not complain and not allow other people to complain to you. And have a good attitude, make a decision you're gonna stick around for enough time to figure it out, and don't have expectations of, like, how many people, okay, so here, this is an honest thing. So, how many people have ever lived paycheck to paycheck? Okay, so I was paycheck between paycheck. So what I would do is I would get a paycheck. I get about halfway through where I need to be, and I get a payday advance. And then I go get the payday advance, and I'd try to get that to where it'd get to the end of the month when I was gonna get paid again. And when it wouldn't, I would overdraw my debit card to get groceries because I knew I had overdraft protection on the bank still. Even though the credit cards wouldn't give me no credit, I could still get $300 overdraft at the bank if I did a debit card that went over a little bit. I just paid an extra 34 bucks. So that's how I would get through the month, right? And so, I don't know why I told you all that story. I was reliving it and it totally messed me up right now. But paycheck between paycheck, that's where I was at. Now, coming from that to this, I go on Facebook. I didn't, because we didn't have Facebook where we have it now, where you could see everybody's success. But I'd come into the office and Paul would come in with 37 applications on a Thursday morning, drop them on the desk would dang near break, so many applications. And they're like, Trey, how'd you do? And I'm like, I sold an accidental death policy for $12 a month. They're like, great job, you know? And so the reason why I say that, I had all this baggage before and all these problems. I couldn't expect to correct all this problems in 3 weeks in insurance. Like, if that's your expectation, don't think that way. Like, I don't know how to say it any better than that. Like, I don't want to take away your hope. Do some people come in that are 6 months behind on their house payment and make a gazillion dollars and get all caught up? It's happened. But that was never my deal. My deal was the last 8 years have been a train wreck. I'm going to start right here and make sure that next 8 years aren't as bad as the last 8 years, right? So I was like cutting bait. I wasn't worried about trying to fix all the things of the past. I was just trying to learn some new skills, plant seed on fertile ground where I knew the ground was fertile because other people were having success. And I wasn't comparing myself to everybody the whole time. I was just trying to get a little bit better than I was last week or a little bit better than I was yesterday. And then the other thing I did was I was never so hard on myself that I would beat myself up over and over again. Like, Trey, why are you such a loser? Why are you so stupid? Why are you so fat? Why are you so dumb? Why you have to eat the Twinkie, Trey? Why you eat the Twinkie? I gotta do that. I just ate the Twinkie. I felt bad 2-3 minutes. I was like, I ain't gonna do it again. And then tomorrow, if I do it again, I try to get 2 weeks before I do. See, I'm not giving you health advice. I'm just telling y'all. Let me drink some water. I'm reliving a lot of this stuff right now. Does this make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
You attract a lot more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And that goes with your mindset too. Like when things weren't going right, I just, I'd say to myself, Jesus loves you and so do I. Tomorrow will be better. And then I'd go and I'd try real hard to help somebody with some insurance. And I never got so weighed down by what was working, what didn't work, how long it didn't work, how anybody else was doing. I just set up a race that I could win and I focused on it. And I knew how many people have ever gone at anything in your life from worst to first. You've been really bad at something, you got really good, okay? What did it take in order to accomplish that? It took time and repetition. That's how this is too. It's no different. But if you listen to the wrong people and you start thinking, well, what's the leads? Yeah, so-and-so, they're calling the good leads. They're calling those good leads. I'm calling the bad leads. That's why I can't sell nothing. I got the bad leads. If I had the good leads like them, I'd sell. Like that's a recipe for disaster. Y'all are new, so I'll tell you straight up. Like a lot of people, and this isn't as much now, but for several months, people would think that direct mail leads, those are the good leads. And these internet leads, because you get more people that aren't interested or they hang up on you, that those are bad leads. Like people would say that. Until you buy like a bunch of these direct mail leads for $70 or $80 a piece, and you get people to hang up on you and say they're not interested. I'd rather have that happen on the $9 ones, right? It's just more time on the telephone. Does that make sense? Yes. So I think that's having the right expectation about what it looks like to be successful is the most important part. Like, you can't expect to make a multiple six-figure income working 10 hours a week. Right? I don't think, we're in the high desert. Carrie, how much income do you think you'd make a week anywhere else working 10 hours?
$10.
Like at Jack in the Box, I have to make $20 an hour at Jack in the Box to make $200 a week working 10 hours a week. Like I was always looking at it, because some of y'all, I know you don't believe this, but I didn't have a lot of options. You're thinking he could go back to modeling. He could, no, I really couldn't do any of that, My last job before this was personal trainer. I can't go back to that now. Talk about burning your bridges. So what ended up happening was like, I'd have a bad day in the field with insurance, and then I'd be like, I quit. Well, what am I gonna go do? Work at Starbucks? I could sell one policy a month and make what I'd make there. I don't really have a lot of options. So I don't know how encouraging that is, but putting it in that perspective. So what it caused me to do was actually spend the amount of time on the phone. Like Sam, and you guys will get a chance to hear from Sam, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But Sam, months ago, was struggling with selling internet leads. And he's been so consistent lately. He helped 30 families last month off these internet leads. The leads are the same. It's the same internet leads. He's purchasing them. He's setting appointments. He's calling the same people. But because of his consistent, persistent effort and actually putting in a 40 to 50 hour work week, he's been able to save like a ton of money in the bank, pay all his bills, and be in a better financial situation he's ever been in. So what that came from was working it like a full-time job. Like you have to work this like a job that you can get fired from. And if you've never been self-employed, which most people haven't, that's the hardest part about this business, is learning how to employ yourself. It's not the leads, it's not the training, it's not the clients, it's not those clients, you have to learn how to employ yourself. So a few keys with that, and I don't know how much time I have, Paul, I'm up here talking, I can't talk the whole time, so, okay. But a few keys with that is every day, boil it down to a few things that if you complete that day, it would be a successful day. And then focus on that. Proactive, not reactive. Like how many people are interested in building a big agency? Okay, so the key to building a big agency is at the end of the day, you can say to yourself, if everybody on my team did what I did today, would it be a good day? And if at the end of the day, you could say, if everybody did what I did today, it'd be a good day, that's a good day. Just string a whole bunch of those bad boys together. And it'll work out because people will copy what you do, ultimately, not what you say. And when you're building an agency, the thing you have to remember is your goal is to pull out the stops in support of people's efforts, not what they say. You pull out all the stops in support of their effort, what they actually do. How many people have ever heard talk is cheap? A trap when you're new, for you guys, when you're new, is it's gonna feel like you have to learn so many things before you start. And it's actually the opposite of that. The more you feel like you need to learn, the harder it is to move. But if you move, you'll figure out that all the things you thought you needed to learn really aren't what you need to learn. So analysis by analysis is like the ultimate, that's what messes most people up, right? So I need to know the products. I need to know everything about this. The accelerated death benefit rider on prosperity. How much did they advance on that? Like, I don't even know. I didn't know they had one. I mean, like, well, how do you explain it to people? Well, if you get terminally ill, they'll let you have some of the money while you're still alive so you can get experimental treatment in Mexico. That's how I explain it. You get cancer, you're gonna croak, they'll give you some of the money while you're still alive. That's cool, huh? Yep, okay. That's how I explain it. I don't get into the details of all that stuff. Less is more. Well, that's one of the things, the more you try to explain stuff to people, the more confused they get. It's like, and that's the way it is in this business. The more we try to train you on all the, like, this is what you do when a person's a diabetic. This is what you do when a person's a diabetic. And they're 10 pounds over the weight chart with Americo, you can still do Foresters. But they can't be on more than 2 blood pressure medications at the same time. All you gotta do is put it into Americo, and if it declines them, call Paul, and he'll tell you what's right. I mean, that was my underwriting advice, right? You guys are saying, God, Trey is wholly incompetent. No, I'm not, actually. the biggest mistake people go, I don't want to mess up with a client. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to do the wrong thing. The only way you can do a wrong thing with a life insurance client is to sell them car insurance. If you sold them some life insurance that'll pay out when they die, they're good. It doesn't matter if you could have saved them 12 cents or $4. They're happy. I used to sell people Americo, and I would, now, this probably isn't the best advice, and I don't know how often it worked, but it worked a couple times. So I would show people Americo, and it's $12 more than this company. And I'd help them with Americo, and I'd say, that extra $12 is gonna keep me in business so I can bring Barbara a check. And they'd laugh, and they'd get it. It wasn't a big deal. Like, I wasn't selling on price. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much all I got. Y'all got any questions about anything?
I got a question, Trey. So
yes.
What do you think is the biggest thing for somebody brand new getting started? What's the biggest thing that they should do right away to start to get down that path of success? Like, what's the first thing, the second thing? What are some of the biggest things that they should fix their focus on?
Dial. Just start by setting appointments. The 90% of this business is the phone. 90% of the business is mindset, okay? 10% of the business is skill set, and out of that 10%, 90% of that 10% is the phone. So you just gotta get good at getting on the phone and setting appointments. And it's monotonous and it's drudgery sometimes because you don't like it and you don't wanna do it. But a secret is, like, if I put a stack of leads in front of Paul has the same trepidation about calling the leads as you do, which is crazy. He shouldn't. But he would until he calls one. And then when he calls one, he's in the zone and he'll do it until he has what he has to get done. Like, Carla, if I set some leads in front of you, you'd be nervous too until you call one. Like, the hardest one to call is the first one. That's it. So get yourself in an environment where it's comfortable to call with other people. I could never, ever dial by myself. I still can't do it. I get bored. I figure out other stuff to do. I watch a Netflix documentary. I do whatever, but I don't, by myself, it's hard. So what I would do is I would go to the office and I would sit out in front. So the way the office used to work, it was a lot like this. Like Paul's office would be over there, Andrew's office would be right there, and there'd be this open area, and the staff would sit here, and I'd sit where Ben was. And I'd just go in there and I'd look over my shoulder, Paul's looking at me and Andrew's looking at me, and I'd pick up the phone and I'd dial it because I felt like they were watching me. They probably didn't even realize it was even in there. But I put myself in an environment where it's uncomfortable not to do the work, right? Until I got comfortable enough where I could, sit in my car and do it between appointments or whatever. But that's the number one thing you should focus on. It's not learning the products. It's not watching 75, dude. Our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. Our biggest strength is like we have more training that's better than anybody. We got 75,000 podcasts. That's our biggest strength. So much training. It's all amazing. It's also our biggest weakness because people will just dive down this rabbit hole. I talked to an agent today. He's probably gonna see the video now. But he comes in, I mentioned it to him, so I'm okay with him seeing it. He comes in, he has a video of Sean Might from 2014. And Sean's talking, and he transcribed everything Sean said in the video, even the stuff that have to do with selling. He's like, this guy's good. I've read it like 10 times. I'm like, dude, this is too much. like, let's call Mark. Here's some leads. Call Mark. Tell him you're coming over. And then I watch and see if they'll do it. Right? That's all you have to do is get people over the hump of dialing the telephone. Dialing the telephone, dialing the telephone, dialing the telephone. That's all it is. That's the hardest part. It's the most uncomfortable part. It's the only thing you got to focus on in the beginning. Everything else will take care of itself. I've recruited people in this business who, for whatever reason, were just freaking good at selling insurance. And I couldn't figure it out because they annoy the crap out of me. I'm like, I don't even like your personality. I can't talk with you for 4 minutes. And you sell like 10 in a row. What do you say? I don't even want to know what you say. It's weird. What do you mean nobody tells you they want to think about it? They all tell me they want to think about it. I'm like, Bob, what do you do when they say they want to think about it? Nobody's ever told me that. I helped 15 families this week. And they're good like that. I'm like, this is the craziest thing I ever saw. And then I have people that are like the best communicators of all time, and they go 0 for 40. And I'm like, I can't figure this out. So what I'm trying to say when I say that is like, don't overthink it. It's just, some people are really good when they start. Some people are really bad when they start, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And everybody goes through the same stuff. You just might go through it at different phases. Like everybody goes through the same stuff. You just may not, the first big problems that Paul encountered may not be the first big problems you encountered, but you'll eventually encounter. We've all encountered all the problems, right? So if we sit around and try to train you and teach you how to not go through all these things, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and it gets overwhelming and complicated. So what I tell people to do is get some leads. I don't care how old they are. Call them up and tell them you're coming over. And I don't know how popular it is to say this, but I think when you're starting, you guys should just go see people. Like the phone thing is super attractive. Like I just sit on my phone and call at my house in my pajamas with my little fuzzy bunny slippers, drinking cocoa, pick up the kids after school. Like I want to do all that, but the learning curve for a brand new person to try to do it on the telephone is so much steeper than the learning curve of a brand new person that'll mess up, dial for 6 hours, book 9 appointments for the next 2 days, fail miserably. Like how many you want to book in 2 days? You want to book 15. They'll book 9. They'll mess up. The first 4 won't show up. The 5th one won't buy it. The 6th one will buy it and cancel it before they get out the door. They're depressed. They go to the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and they're all happy, and they feed them tacos, and they buy from them. And they're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I can't get people to get that kind of experience by just sitting on the phone, dialing over and over and over, trying to sell people on the phone, looking at the wall. Like it's not the same thing. And what you have to do is compress time frames in this business. Super speedy, massive action. When you set appointments to go see people, it's way easier to compress time frames and get through the learning curve. That learning curve of, I'm gonna go see folks, I'm gonna figure out the e-app. If I screw up the e-app with Nick and I can't figure out how to, Carrie was in one for 4.5 hours for a $34 sale. It was more than that, but he was in there and the e-app broke. There was something wrong with it. And he's in there with the guy and the guy's feeding him. He's bringing him coffee. He's doing everything he can to make Carrie comfortable because he feels bad. And this goes on an extra 2 hours. He sells it. They're best friends. They're probably going to go on a fishing trip at some point. He got some insurance and Carrie got paid. Had that been on the phone, that conversation would have lasted 6 minutes and Carrie wouldn't have gotten a sale. So you get a lot more grace when you're new when you just go see folks, if that makes sense. So, any other questions?
What would you say the best practice from when you started to build your agency between just making time for your agents to pour into them versus like your production?
Well, personal production is the main thing. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Personal production is the main thing. The biggest override you make in the business is on yourself. And personal production keeps you from wasting a lot of time with people. A trap when it comes to building is just simply recruiting the wrong people. Like I've been recruiting a lot of people direct lately, and I'm realizing that again. Like I used to say that all the time, huh, Paul? I say that in 2015 every day. And I'm remembering what that's like, that's true. Like recruiting the wrong people, talking people into it, really don't want to do it. Letting people talk you into it that you know probably shouldn't do it. Like I don't need everybody. I just want the ones that they know the good, bad, and the ugly, and they still want to do it. That's my litmus test. Bob knows the good, bad, and the ugly, and he still wants to do it. He knows he has to buy leads. He knows there's chargebacks. He knows he has to drive. He knows not everybody says yes. He knows he needs to work on weekends. You know, he knows he's not going to get rich overnight. He's not trying to get rich overnight. He may not be able to quit his job right away. Like I want him to know all that stuff. And then if he's still like, yeah, Trey, I think it's a good idea. I'm like, you sure? Like, yeah, okay, all right. I guess you could try it. You know, and people think, oh, he's doing the old takeaway. It's a technique. It actually is not a technique. Like you make more money in this business talking people out of it than you do talking people into it. If your goal is to have recruiting numbers, it won't ever work. I'd rather have 2 of the right people than 200 of the wrong ones. You can run with 1,000 people, but you can't carry 1 on your back, or 2. Paul could carry 1. He couldn't carry 2 though. You know, it depends on how big the people were. He probably carried 2. Definitely could not carry 3. Paul's strong, right? But you can run with a bunch of people. Does that make sense? Can't run as fast as Ben. Ben runs way faster than all y'all, just so you know. You can run ahead of 1,000 people. I'm just losing my mind up here. It's fun though. It's fun. But that's the main thing. Like people are recruiting the wrong people to start with. So they're like, how do I balance my time with my agency? When you have the right agency, you want to talk to them. Here's a red flag. I recruit Bob. He's been in the business 2 days. He calls me and I already don't want to talk to him. That's not good. I probably shouldn't have recruited that one. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, it's Bob again. What I learned to do early on is like, if he calls me, I'm like, Bob, the first time you called me, I was excited it was you. This last time though, I had a pit in my stomach and my first inclination was to drive my car into a tree. That's not a good feeling. And then he thinks I'm joking, which I'm kind of joking. I'm not going to drive my car into a tree, but I learned to address it. And I'm like, the reason why I'm saying this to you right now, Bob, is because I don't want it to go 6 months and every time you call, I don't want to talk to you. It's either because I think you're going to complain to me or you're going to ask me the same thing you asked me 14 times. And I'm not the 14-time asking guy. You asked me only 7 times. I'm good with that, not 14. Anyway, what do you need? And I learned to do that. Because if I'm going to run Bob off, I'll run him off early.
Yes.
You know? I don't know if this is good advice or not, but that's what I would do. So then when I'm running my appointments and I'm in the field and I'm selling, there's a list of people, like you like these people, I like them already too. Like I would call them because I want to talk to them. So that's how I spend time with them. And the other thing I learned to do is point to tools to train the team and support the team, and you just provide a relationship to the team. Like what a lot of people try to do is they try to solve everybody's problem. If Carrie comes to me with a problem, this is what's draining about building an organization. Carrie comes to me with a problem and he says, Trey, this thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened. And he's complaining. And he says, what do you think I should do? The tendency of everybody is to go, well, I'll tell you exactly what you should do. Don't do that. Because he's in a reactive mindset and he has problems, and he can't solve his problems in a reactive mindset. The best thing to do is what Paul always did. He would say, I don't know, what do you think you should do? And then all of a sudden he starts coming up with answers. Like, this is my problem, this is what I can do. If he keeps pushing back, I'll say, do me a favor. Here's what you should do. Get out a piece of paper. On one side of the paper, write your problem. On the other side of the paper, write down everything you can do and spend 30 minutes on it and call me back. And a lot of times he'll never call back because he'll come up with his own solution. But then if he calls back, we can talk about what's on the paper, and I don't get drawn into this situation where I give him advice, and now if he takes my advice and it doesn't work, now he's the victim, right? And I'm the persecutor because I gave him the bad advice, right? You play all these different roles in this stupid game. Whereas if I just got Kerry to think proactively about how to solve his problem, rather than trying to fix his problem all the time, now I got a team of people who fix their own problems and take personal responsibility. Does that make sense? So, and that's what you want. And I mess it up all the time still, but that's the ultimate thing that I'm trying to accomplish.